Would you like to return in the future, whether that be in the main show or a spin-off? What does Doctor Who mean to you? Hello Whovians, Crispy Bro here and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for sticking around. So today we have a very special guest. I am joined by the one, the only, Janet Fielding. How are you?
Oh, I'm really well and lovely to be home in Brizzy.
In Brizzy! It's very nice.
Gorgeous Brizzy.
And they've given us a hot day, so that's nice.
They have given us, it's a warm day.
It's a warm day, not too hot.
It's not too hot, it's a bit perfect.
But you know what else are hot?
What?
These questions that have been
really?
sent in from the fans.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So the first one,
Yeah.
And this question actually means a lot to me.
Really?
How did it feel being the first Australian companion?
Now, that was awesome. You've got to admit.
Yeah.
Because I was not only the first Australian companion, but I was the first companion who wasn't a Brit. I think some people expected me to represent Australia, and you go, no, I can't do that. All I can do is play the character.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, as it is written, as it is conceived. When John Nathan Turner, who was then the producer, was looking for somebody to play a bossy Australian, he hated my photograph, didn't want to see me. It was a rubbish photograph, I have to admit. But I was with an actors cooperative at the time, and one of the actors wrote this letter saying, he refused to give up, and he wrote, "You want somebody to play a bossy Australian? They don't come much bossier than this one."
That's perfect.
And that may be true. Well, I've got 3 younger brothers.
Oh, I see.
So,
in the DNA.
Exactly.
I don't think you were necessarily meant to represent Australia, but just the fact that you are Australian, and I was just telling you before off stage that, I'm just getting through my classic rewatch, and it is so delightful hearing an Australian accent in Doctor Who. It doesn't happen often.
No, well, I'm so glad you said that, because I have had people here go, oh, it's lovely to have an Australian in Doctor Who, but this is back in the early 80s, and people would go, but the accent's a bit strong. And you'd go, really?
Yeah.
That is a cultural cringe, and I finally twigged what it was, and I said to somebody who was interviewing me, what's wrong with an Australian accent? What's wrong with having an Australian accent? That is cultural cringe. And do you know what? Nobody has ever said it to me again.
There we go.
And the truth of the matter is, if you're with a load of English voices, you're going to sound a lot more Australian than you would.
Exactly.
And the BBC kept going, John Nathan Turner kept going, more Australian, more Australian. You're not Australian enough.
The second question here is from a very curious viewer who has wondered, was Tegan's constant trash talking of Brisbane based on your own life experiences, or was that just thrown in?
Well, I think there was only one comment where I trashed Brisbane, and it was Brisbane's nightlife. So the constant trashing, that's really an exaggeration. Get a grip. And Brisbane nightlife at the time was utter rubbish.
I suppose it's some sort of neutral environment, an isolated space cut off from the rest of the universe.
He should have told me that's what he wanted. I could have shown him Brisbane.
When I left, it really was pretty miserable.
Well, I'm happy to report that the nightlife is still pretty miserable.
No!
Not constantly trashing Brisbane. There was one comment.
One
comment, okay?
And I was in the show for 3 years because I was one of the longest serving. I think Lizzie Sladen did more episodes than me, and I did slightly longer. Of the classic companions, that's the way it goes. And in all that time, one criticism, but that's the one you have to remember.
Another question I've been very curious about is, did you watch any Doctor Who before getting the role of Tegan?
You bet your sweet bippy.
Yeah.
Of course. I grew up. Yeah, it's a cultural phenomenon. And I grew up watching it. I don't really have very clear memories of William Hartnell. I'd like to pretend because I'm too young, but that's actually not true. Yeah. It was just we didn't get a television until comparatively late. And so I remember Patrick Troughton as the first Doctor for me, really. People often ask, what's your favourite Doctor? And Peter Davison has a great answer, and that is, there would have been no Doctor Who beyond William Hartnell if Patrick Troughton hadn't made a success of it when he took over the
Yeah,
role.
exactly. It's the biggest risk in television history, one of recasting the main. It was unheard of.
Absolutely. And the whole, transmogrification thing is genius, absolute genius. And then Pat, who was just glorious in the role and a glorious human being. I love Pat.
Good old Pat. Good old Pat.
He phoned me once.
Yeah.
We were all doing this big convention in Chicago, one of those ones like the 8,000 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I get a phone call in my room. I need someone to cut my hair. You look like you might be able to cut hair. Oh, yeah. Okay, Pat. I'll have a go.
No worries. And did you?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. That is a fun little tidbit of history. Oh my gosh.
Because he felt it was getting in his eyes, so he needed somebody to trim it a bit. So I went down and trimmed his hair.
And do you think you did a good job? Did he like it?
Yeah, it looked all right.
Yeah, good.
You just imitate what you've seen at the hairdressing salon.
Amazing. Speaking of some of your vivid memories, what is your most vivid memory when you first got the role of Tegan in Doctor Who? What was that like, being on set?
Well, I was quite intimidated by Tom Baker. And Tom wasn't at his most avuncular, shall we say, because he was leaving and he wasn't overly joyed about leaving. And I was the first female companion he hadn't, since Lizzie, because Lizzie he inherited from John Pertwee. And I was the first female companion he hadn't had a hand in choosing.
Right.
So it was a little bit sticky at first.
Yeah.
So it was a bit awkward.
Another avenue of Doctor Who that you're involved in is Big Finish.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, what has been your favourite Big Finish audio to star in so far?
We've just done one that's coming out called Conflict of Interest. So that's probably my favourite.
Do you ever record them here in Australia, or is it always in the UK?
No, I'm always in the UK. I live in the UK, and I'm just home for 2 months to see my brothers and have a family reunion and,
And to meet a few fans.
And to meet a few fans. So, there's still Hobart on the 15th of April with Rove McManus. Yeah, very exciting. I'm really excited about that. And then there's Brisbane on the 23rd of April, and that's going to have a TARDIS and Cybermen and Daleks.
And Janet Fielding, I hear, is coming.
Yeah,
well.
I've heard she's coming.
Yeah.
She's quite good, I think. And a guy called Jason Haig-Ellery, who has a lot to do with Big Finish.
Yeah.
He's in Big Finish. He's Mr. Big Finish, and he has all the gossip. He's good on gossip.
Oh, yeah.
Just keep prodding him. Ask him about Kate Winslet and Russell T Davies.
This is the big one.
Yeah.
Because obviously,
Yeah.
Tegan came back for the Power of the Doctor.
Yay! In this costume,
In this very costume.
which I will be wearing in both Hobart and in Brisbane. So, people who want to photograph in the costume, I'm there. Yep.
Huge. So one thing I'm wondering is, what was it like filming New Who compared to Classic Who? Because obviously it's a different team. It's a different team. It's a whole new playing field.
A whole new playing field. I hadn't been in front of a camera as an actor since 1988. It was 35 years since I'd been in front of a camera. And it was COVID.
Oh, yes.
So, I was so excited about getting the part, but then I had to worry that if I got if I got COVID,
That's it.
I would have been, I'm sure I would have been recast.
Jamie Magnus Stone is subscribed to the channel, the director of Power of the Doctor. Yeah, so
he is brilliant.
I love Jamie. He's
Isn't
a very nice
Isn't he
guy.
brilliant? Oh, he's so good. He's such a lovely guy.
What was he like working on set with him?
Unbelievably calm.
Oh, that's good. He seems like a very zen kind of guy.
Completely. I was awestruck really because, it's a pretty fast shoot schedule. There's a lot to do. And he was just really, really creative and really just calm and authoritative at the same time. He was a lovely, lovely bloke.
What was it like reuniting with Peter Davison in that beautiful scene in Power of the Doctor? You don't have to tell me much, but just tell me a little.
Okay, Pete wasn't there on the first day when I did that.
Okay.
But he was there later because he came in, so we did do that scene together. We're mates, you know. We're continually working on Big Finish together.
Well, after that massive break of not being on TV, let alone Doctor Who, what was it like slipping back into character after all this time?
I really love Tegan as a character. I think she's such fun. She's such fun to play. I've always described her as being a bit like Lucy in Charlie Brown.
Okay, yeah.
You know, she's that sort of tradition. So I was a bit like, I'm on, you know, I'm doing this again after such a long time. But Tegan's a confident character, so that was quite useful.
Yeah.
You know, because you almost borrow her confidence.
Definitely.
And so that was huge. I had a great time with that.
Janet, the final question I'm going to ask you is, how has Doctor Who affected your life, and would you like to return in the future, whether that be in the main show or a spin-off? What does Doctor Who mean to you?
I would love to come back into Doctor Who from time to time. That would be just wonderful, because it's such a family.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we know each other, we're fond of each other. And as I've got older, like when I left the series, it hadn't done my career any favours at the time.
Right.
Because people went, oh, we can't hire you as an Australian, otherwise they'll think you're the only Australian we know. Okay. When you're not going to get a British part because you're Australian, and we all know you're Australian. All of that was going on. And it was quite difficult because I was in my 30s and the 1980s were like that. I got to learn 10 years later what a privilege it was to be a treasured part of so many childhoods and adolescence. Began to understand what a privilege that was and how lucky you were that that was part of your life. And of course, and then because I started doing the fan conventions again, it became like family. And so that was lovely.
That is really, really well put. Thank you, Janet. That means a lot.
Oh, thank you, Crispy.
It's Janet Felix saying crispy there. But Janet, I really thank you for talking to me today. It's been an absolute
worries.
privilege. So we've said it before in this video, but where are you going to be? What's happening?
15th of April in Hobart, and that's with Rove McManus. So that should be a really good show. I love him. And then there'll be Brisbane on the 23rd of April at the Arts Theatre in Brisbane on Petrie Terrace. And that will be Spencer Howson, who's going to do the interviewing. He's great. I've worked with him before. And Jason Haig-Ellery from Big Finish. He's Mr. Big Finish. And then there'll be Cybermen, there'll be a TARDIS, there'll be Daleks. So don't miss, you know, if you can get to one of the live shows, come along, because we'll have a really good time. And I really wanted them to be not like the big conventions,
A bit more intimate.
but more intimate. And so that's what we're doing. And people get a really decent shot at talking to me and everything.
No, well, I am very privileged that I had a decent shot at talking to you today. So thank you. We'll end the video there. Please subscribe. Check out the link in the description for Janet's event, A Day with Janet Fielding. And that's going to do. Like and subscribe. Bye.